In a world where a virus rewrote humanity to enforce obedience, Elian Cross, one of the last true humans, learns of a child born immune. Hunted by the regime and haunted by his past, he sets out to rescue her, knowing she may be the key to remembering what it means to be free. Welcome back, traveler. Before we set course tonight, take a second to anchor us. A thumbs up or a comment is like a signal ping through the void. It lets me know someone's out there. And if you feel like journeying with us again, subscribing opens the hatch to all future missions. Dim the lights. Get comfortable. Tonight, we drift into the unknown. Chapter 1, Ash and Silence. Cold didn't bother Elian Cross anymore, not the physical kind. What did was the silence after the screaming stopped, the kind that wrapped around burned-out buildings and soaked into the soles of your boots. He moved through it like a ghost, tall and quiet, the muzzle of his rifle low but ready. He was built like someone who'd survived by breaking other people's plans. 6'5", shoulders like a freight door, with the kind of calm that made twitchy men nervous. His skin was obsidian dark, his hair clipped close to the scalp, and his eyes, when you caught them, were the flat, unreadable grey of someone who'd seen what mercy cost. A combat medic once, long ago. Before the war ended and everything else kept going. The ruins outside Capital Sector 12 looked like they'd been bombed, but he knew better. The government didn't waste bombs on dissenters, just fire and the virus. The van had been a maternity transport once. Now it was slagged open like a tin can, blackened baby seats inside. He ignored the smell, focused instead on the satchel buried under the frame. It was still cool to the touch. He unzipped it. 4 vials. Blue. Stabilized, worth more than half a resistance cell. He didn't smile. He never smiled anymore. A voice chirped in his earpiece, half static, half panic. Elian, it's Rhea. Capital Intel confirms the midwife made it out. She's hiding under Theta Sector. We're not sure how long she can hold. The baby's real. He froze. You're sure? He asked. Genome scans don't lie, she replied. Fully immune. No red tone markers, no spikes, born clean, naturally. Cross said nothing. Don't go dark on me, El. We need this one. We need you. He thumbed the earpiece off and stared toward the crimson skyline. The city always looked like it was bleeding. Chapter 2, The Call That Burns. The capital looked different up close. From the outer wards, it was all spires and banners, a cathedral of red light and polished lies. But once you slipped inside, once the gates scanned your veins and the walls swallowed your name, you saw it for what it was, rot wrapped in chrome. Cross had seen it before, years ago, before the horns, before the virus. When he wore a medic's insignia and believed the system could be healed, he still carried the scar from his last mission here just beneath his ribs. Shrapnel and regret. Now he wore a contractor's badge clipped to a forged armband and a pressure-sanitized uniform stolen off a dead logistics officer. His face was hidden behind a surgical-grade breath mask, the kind only top-tier field medics could afford. It fooled most scanners. The ones it didn't, he avoided. The internal checkpoints blinked green as he passed. The machine didn't see a man, it saw a barcode. Inside the walls, the city pulsed with sterilized life. Drones drifted overhead like bored gods. Surveillance poles tracked heat signatures across crowded walkways. Every public screen screamed obedience, images of red-skinned citizens smiling, their horns polished, their eyes empty, conform to evolve, serve to ascend. Cross walked fast, purposeful, invisible. He found her in the steam tunnels beneath the maternity ward, tucked behind a false panel in the filtration grid. The air was thick with recycled heat and old tears. The midwife was curled into the corner, clutching a stained blanket like it might vanish. Her name was Tava. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Blood matted her hairline. Her fingers trembled when she saw him. Are you the one they sent? She asked, voice paper thin. Yeah, Cross said. Name's Elian. I'm getting you both out. She didn't move, just stared at him. I saw it, she whispered. When she came out, no markers, no glow. Her skin was clean, like mine used to be. Cross nodded. Where's the child? Tava pointed to a crate behind her, converted into a makeshift crib. A hiss of filtered air blew over the opening, and inside, wrapped in synth cloth, was a tiny girl. Sleeping. Elian leaned in. No sign of infection, no trace of the engineered strain. Her skin was smooth, untouched by the new order, untouched by the lie. For the first time in years, Cross felt something crack beneath his ribs. Hope. Then came the sound he hated most. Boots. Not footsteps, boots. Coordinated, heavy, measured. Tava heard it too. "How did they?" she began. "Doesn't matter," he cut her off. "We move now." He scooped the child up, gentle as breath, and sealed her in the satchel lined with heat-dampening fiber. Tava staggered after him, limping. They made it 2 corridors before the hallway ahead lit red. A security drone descended from the ceiling, its optics scanning like a lighthouse. Behind it, 3 horned enforcers emerged, tall, red-skinned, armored in chrome exocladding. They looked like statues built to kill. Cross ducked them into a waste chute, slammed the hatch, and dropped 2 levels down into raw tunnel. "Who?" he asked, breath tight. "Who else knew where you were?" Tava didn't answer right away. Then her voice came, like a knife in her own throat. "I think someone in your network. A man. Said he used to know you." Elian froze, not because he didn't believe her, because he did. Chapter 3. The Betrayer's Mask. The Undercity was always damp. Not from rain, it hadn't rained in the capital in over a decade, but from condensation dripping off 1,000 kilometers of rusted pipe. The walls here sweated. So did the people. Cross led them through the maintenance corridors like he'd built the place himself. He moved fast, but never panicked. Panic got you seen. Panic got you dead. Tava kept close behind him, cradling the satchel against her chest now. The baby didn't cry. That worried him. Healthy infants cried. Quiet ones were either too weak or too smart. Neither was good in a city like this. He tapped a series of manual relays on an old junction wall, and a door hissed open, revealing a short staircase down into blackness. Motion lights flickered, then died. "Where are we going?" Tava whispered. "Somewhere no one looks anymore," Cross said. "Maintenance Sector 7, Ghost Zone." They reached the bottom and entered a hollowed-out recycling chamber. Obsolete tech, stripped wiring, cracked tiles still bearing the old ministry seal. A safe house, long forgotten. Cross bolted the door behind them and scanned the walls with a thermal reader. No bugs, no pulses. Clean. Tava set the satchel down and sank to the floor. Cross leaned against a bulkhead and let his breath slow. Every muscle in his body was taut beneath the armor-weave lining of his coat. He didn't need to ask again. He already knew who had sold them out. Only one man alive had clearance that deep. Knew Cross's infiltration patterns, knew the codes he used, knew the places he ran to when the world turned red. His name was Darren Val, and once, years ago, he had been Elian's partner. In the war, in everything. Before he turned. They had fought side by side in the last neutral field hospital during the genome revisions. Back when people still thought the Mercy strain was reversible. Back when Cross still believed medicine could beat madness. But Darren had changed, not from the virus. From ambition. He'd taken the government's offer, full immunity package, genetic enhancements, authority, a new face, a new body, a clean slate, and a horned crown. Cross remembered the last thing Darren said before walking out of that crumbling hospital and into the state's arms. "We don't get to fix people, El. We get to survive them." That was 10 years ago. Now he was hunting a child. Tava stirred. "If he knows you, he won't stop, right?" Cross didn't look at her. "No," he said, "he won't." He activated a private channel. The encryption was old but solid. "Ria, it's me." The reply came seconds later. "Where the hell have you been?" "They found us. Someone leaked the route. It was Darren." Silence. Then, "You sure?" "Yeah." Ria swore softly. "That bastard's still alive. He's ghost class now, full enforcer status. You don't walk away from that." "I don't plan to walk," Cross said. A beat of static. "I've got a contact," Ria said. "Biotech engineer, off-grid. Calls himself Mavericks. He's been working on anti-signal gear, cloaking, misdirection, old-world masks. Weird stuff, but it works. He'll want something in return. Doesn't matter, Cross said. Just get me there. He ended the call and looked down at the child, still sleeping. She stirred, just slightly, one tiny fist unfurled. On her wrist, beneath translucent skin, glowed a faint mark, barely visible. A gene signature, real, untouched, proof. Cross didn't pray, but in that moment, he wished the world still had something like God's. Chapter 4. The Engineer with No Face. Mavericks lived in a dead zone 3 clicks past the outer utility grid, where even the drones stopped flying. Cross knew the path from old maintenance maps, but even so, it took them hours to reach the edge. The tunnels narrowed, then widened again, until they opened into what used to be a power substation. Blackened, gutted, long since abandoned by the state. Now it belonged to ghosts. He stopped short of the gate. Motion sensors blinked from the shadows, and a soft pulse ran across his skin. An electromagnetic scan, barely perceptible. "Don't move," he said to Tava. A door opened without a sound. The man who stepped through it didn't look like much of a man at all. He was tall, skeletal, half-shrouded in an armored coat that seemed to shimmer in and out of focus. One of his arms was fully mechanical, old military-grade polymer rigged with surgical tools and a cracked injection port. His face was covered by a deep-plated mask with no mouth and only one visible eye, glowing dull blue. Mavericks. "You're late," the voice said, tinny, distorted, echoing from a speaker buried in his chest. "And you brought company." "Didn't have a choice," Cross replied. "We're being hunted. Everyone's being hunted. This one's different." Mavericks tilted his head, examining the satchel. He scanned it without asking. After a moment, he hissed quietly through the speaker. "Real," he said. "That's a problem." "Not if I get her out," Cross replied. "You won't," Mavericks said. "They're locking down sectors. You've already been tagged." Cross stepped forward. "I need your gear. Mask tech, cloak filter, whatever you've got left that still works." "I've got things that work," Mavericks said. "Question is, how much of you still does?" Cross didn't flinch. He let the silence stretch. Finally, Mavericks turned. "Follow me." Inside, the walls were lined with machines that hadn't existed before the war. Scramblers, pulse mutators, visual displacers. Some were built from scrap. Others looked like they'd been printed straight from myth. Tava stared at them like they might bite. Mavericks moved to a bench and pulled a mask from a lead-lined case. It was bone white, smooth, and covered in thin, etched lines that pulsed faintly with soft light. "This'll scramble facial record for 12 minutes at a time," he said, handing it to Cross. "Wears like hell. Smells worse. Works." Cross took it. "I've got a route mapped to the Bastion," Mavericks continued. "Old maintenance tunnel, pre-merge architecture. Unmapped, leads to a junction in the Gene Vault wing." "You've been inside the Bastion?" "I helped build it," Mavericks said. That stopped Cross cold. "You were state?" "I was a scientist," Mavericks said. "I believed in progress. Then I saw what they did with it." He walked over to the child and stared at her for a long time. "She's not just immune," he said. "She's a reset." Cross tensed. "What do you mean?" Mavericks looked up at him, and for a moment the mask seemed transparent. Not physically, just something in the way he moved. "She's a clean genome," he said. "Uncoded, no embedded obedience markers, no viral legacy. If they copy her, they can rewrite the Mercy strain entirely. They won't cure it. They'll weaponize it." Cross swallowed. "Then we burn the lab." Mavericks nodded once. "I thought you'd say that." He handed Cross a small device, round, smooth, and pulsing with slow light. "Proximity-based," he said. "Not a bomb." "Not exactly. It'll cook the replication chamber and fry their sequence backups." Cross pocketed it. "And what do you want in return?" Mavericks stared at him for a long time. "When it's done," he said, "you make sure the world knows what they did." The virus wasn't a mutation, it was an order. Obedience isn't a side effect, it's the design. Cross gave a slight nod. "Deal." They left before sunrise. The child slept the entire night. Chapter 5. The Bastion. The Bastion wasn't a building, it was a fortress wrapped in skin. Half hospital, half research prison, buried beneath the inner capital like a tumor with its own immune system. The air outside it was warmer, tainted, like the city exhaled poison just to keep it alive. Cross approached under the guise of a certified medical contractor, badge cloned from an old ministry threadline and encrypted twice over. He wore the white cloak of a gene clearance auditor, the kind they only sent in when something needed to disappear quietly. Maverick's mask was tucked beneath the collar, hidden until he crossed the right line. The guard at the outer gate barely looked at him. The badge blinked green. The scanner didn't even whisper. Inside, the world changed. Walls pulsed faintly, coated in living polymer that responded to proximity and body heat. White corridors stretched in unnatural symmetry. Drones floated just below the ceiling, silent and watching. Every surface was clean, too clean. The kind of clean that wasn't about hygiene, it was about control. Cross moved through it like he belonged, flanked by two other techs he didn't speak to. One nodded at him, he didn't nod back. Tava was waiting inside the waste tunnel below Junction 9. The child had been sedated, a low-dose stasis gel, enough to keep her stable, quiet, unseen. He adjusted the pack on his back, double-checking the biometric shields. The proximity device sat beneath it, warm and inert. Waiting. Signs guided him through sub-level 4, past the sequencing wards and into the core wing. Gene Vault B. The corridor here was locked behind twin doors, mechanical, thick, state-level access only. He walked to the terminal, typed the old override from his medic days. It still worked. The door opened. Inside was a cradle, not for a child, for a weapon. The room was circular, sterile, silent. In the center, a transparent chamber hovered in suspension, lined with magnetic rings and hard light barriers. Inside it, sleeping, breathing, catalogued, was the child. Cross moved closer, one step, then another. She was alive. Real, but she wasn't being studied. She was being copied. Banks of machines lined the far wall, extracting genetic code, mapping sequences, compiling viral payloads. Charts flickered across the displays, models, revisions, viral propagation curves. It wasn't research, it was replication. Cross scanned the console nearest the cradle. The file structure was locked, but the name said enough. Mercy 2. Immunity suppression. Pathway obedience, fixed seed gene. Erasure protocol, active. He felt his hands tighten around the edges of the console. His throat was dry. They weren't trying to cure the Mercy strain. They were building something worse, a new virus. One that didn't just infect the body, it rewrote the past. It would erase the immunity gene entirely, purge the history of resistance, and replace it with perfect silence. He activated the proximity device and slid it behind the lowest server bank. 10 seconds, no sirens, no alarms, just the low rising hum of something coming undone. Cross moved fast, broke the cradle's clamp manually, lifted the child free. She didn't stir, still sleeping. The lights flickered once, then the hum became a scream. Glass cracked, machines sparked, the air filled with the sound of dying data. Cross ran. He didn't look back. Chapter 6. The Red Sky Falls. They didn't notice him at first. In the chaos of flickering lights and alarm chimes, Cross moved like a ghost, one more figure in white among dozens running the opposite direction. Emergency klaxons echoed down every corridor. Sector lockdown warnings scrolled across walls in burning red script. Do not exit. Biosecure zone compromised. Perfect. He took a maintenance chute 2 levels down, past the filtration sector, into the bonework of the Bastion. The girl was strapped tight to his chest, bundled in the shielded sling, still unconscious. Every step was calculated, every motion rehearsed in muscle. He tapped his earpiece. Rear. Extraction. Her voice came through tight, crackling with distortion. I've got Mavericks on the line. He's already moving. Drones inbound to the tunnel egress at Sector 419. That's your exit. ETA? 5 minutes if you run. I don't run. You will, she said, because they're not sending guards this time. They're sending him. Cross didn't need to ask who. He reached the underlevel corridor with 60 seconds to spare. It smelled like heat and coolant, old steel sweating beneath its skin. Behind him, the Bastion raged. Ahead, the drone shuttle loomed in a silent side chamber, lights off, rotors warm. Then came the footsteps. He turned. The silhouette emerged from smoke and broken light. Darren Val. The years hadn't dulled him. If anything, the enhancements had refined the monster into something elegant. He moved like a blade, skin polished crimson, horns cut low and symmetrical, eyes glowing beneath a face that looked almost human, if you squinted and forgot who he was. He didn't speak at first, just stood there, examining Cross like a riddle he'd already solved. "I knew you'd come," Darren said finally. Cross shifted his stance. "Didn't come for you." Darren smiled. "You always had a weakness for causes, especially the impossible ones." "She's not a cause," Cross said. "She's a child." "She's a liability," Darren replied. "Do you know what they'll do when they realize what she is? The panic, the riots, the collapse? Do you think people want to go back to before?" Cross met his eyes, unblinking. "I think people deserve the choice." Darren moved forward, slow and graceful. "You never understood. The virus was never about sickness. It was about control. We gave them structure, purpose. You know how many wars we stopped when we standardized evolution?" Cross didn't answer. He just drew his weapon and fired. The fight was brutal, not clean, not cinematic, real. Darren moved fast, faster than any man should. His bones had been reinforced, muscles tuned. But Cross knew his rhythm, had fought beside it once. He ducked the first swing, drove his elbow into Darren's gut, and shoved him back against the wall. Darren retaliated with a punch that cracked armor weave. Cross felt a rib go. Blood filled his mouth. They grappled, slammed into the steel wall, traded blows like old promises. The child in the sling cried out, just once. The sound pierced the air like a gunshot. Cross drove his knee into Darren's side, grabbed a shock baton from his belt, and jammed it under the horn line. Darren screamed, then silence. Cross stood over him, panting, bleeding. Darren looked up through one half-closed eye. "You're too late," he whispered. "They'll never let her leave." Cross didn't reply. He walked to the shuttle, stepped inside. It lifted off with no lights, no signal. Behind him, the city began to lock down. Chapter 7. Beneath the Skin. The drone shuttle flew low over the capital's skeletal fringe, hugging dead signal lanes and abandoned monorail tracks. Its hull was painted in stealth polymer, near invisible to the orbital grid. The city burned behind them, at least in part. Controlled fire. Symbolic, not strategic. A warning. The Bastion had been hit, and the system didn't take kindly to open defiance. Inside the shuttle, Cross sat in the rear, one hand gripping the bench rail, the other resting over the bundle at his chest. The child slept. No sedative, just exhaustion. Her skin was still clear, no trace of red, no glowing marks, just the faint gene signature on her wrist, soft like starlight. Across from him, Mavericks monitored their course through a stripped-down console, jury-rigged into the floor. His mask was off now, revealing a face half machine, worn down to the bone in places, pale and hollow. A man who'd traded pieces of himself to stay free. "You left him alive," Maverick said. Cross didn't respond. "He'll come after you again. He always does." Silence settled. The kind that carried weight, the kind that had seen too many endings. Mavericks adjusted the shuttle's course. "There's a fallback route, subterranean bypass running through the water reclamation tunnels under the East District. Resistance has a foothold there, off-grid, heavily shielded. You trust them?" Cross asked. "No," Maverick said, "but they trust you." The words landed like a hammer in Cross's chest. He didn't answer. They landed an hour later in a buried transit loop carved from old city bedrock. The walls were tagged with resistance symbols, broken circles, black suns, DNA strands drawn like nooses. People emerged from the shadows as the shuttle hissed open. Pale faces, hollow eyes, but alive. Rhea was waiting at the platform. She looked worse than he remembered, thinner, bruised, one eye ringed with cybernetic feedback scarring. But she was still standing, still moving forward. When she saw the child, she stepped back. Her breath caught in her throat. "Is she still clean?" Cross said. "Still breathing?" "She made it," Rhea whispered. "For now," Cross replied. He handed the child to one of the resistance medics, an older woman with burned fingers and steady hands. The child stirred, blinked once, then settled. No fear, no sound, just observation. "You did it," Rhea said. "You really—" "Not yet," Cross said. He looked around. The people here wore masks, but not for infection, for hiding, for surviving. You could always tell who remembered being human by how long they looked you in the eyes. "I need a broadcast channel," he said. "Encrypted, wide reach, Earthside." Rhea frowned. "Why?" "Because they need to know what the virus really is, what it was made to do." "You think they'll believe it?" "No," Cross said, "but someone will." Chapter 8. The Road Back. The broadcast room was a patchwork of stolen tech and salvaged hope. Half the terminals still ran on pre-war OS shells. The antenna was rigged through the ceiling, wired into old sewer infrastructure, and boosted with phase-bent copper rods. It was a miracle it even functioned. Cross sat at the terminal, eyes scanning the screen. The file Mavericks had given him was raw. Data blocks, DNA strand overlays, timestamps, deployment memos from state biogen units. Most of it was redacted, the parts that weren't told a story the world wasn't meant to hear. The Mercy strain had never been a mutation. It had been deployed, intentionally. Engineered not just to spread, but to remake, to rewrite humanity into something governable, something obedient. Resistance was never about the virus, it was about memory, identity, choice. He encrypted the packet with a rotating cipher chain and set it to transmit in pulse bursts, scrambled through 50 relay nodes, some of which didn't even officially exist. The target list was tight: underground news nets, whistleblower archives, private data sanctuaries Earthside. A few university black channels, the kind of places the state couldn't kill fast enough. He hit send. Then he left. The tunnels were on fire when he returned to the lower levels, not from bombs, from people. The enforcers had traced them. The city was in partial lockdown. Red zones expanded like veins. Propaganda drones screamed warnings in every corridor. Compliance is survival. Non-human interference will be terminated. Rhea met him at the fallback junction. Her coat was torn, her arm slashed, but she was alive. "They're coming," she said. "Half the district's barricaded, but it won't hold. Mavericks went dark, might be dead." Cross checked the satchel. The child was gone, already smuggled deeper into the underground. Safer, for now. "Evac route?" he asked. "There's a sewage egress under Sector 11, Rhea said. "Old resistance tunnel, leads to the ridge outside the walls." "You trust it?" "I trust nothing," she said, "but it's all we've got." They moved. Cross led the charge through shattered maintenance corridors, ducking fire from railguns mounted on automated drones. Resistance fighters fell behind him, shouting, bleeding, holding the line with handmade explosives and outdated rifles. The tunnel ahead glowed faintly blue, a beacon. The egress. He was 2 meters from the gate when he heard the voice behind him. "Elian!" He turned. Darren stood in the firelight, bleeding from the shoulder, one horn cracked. His weapon was low, but not dropped. "You really think this ends with a broadcast?" he asked. "You think the people up there care? You think Earth wants the truth?" Cross didn't answer. Darren stepped closer. "They'll bury it, just like they buried us. You gave up everything for what? A child? An anomaly?" Cross walked toward him. "She's not an anomaly," he said. "She's the answer to a question you were too afraid to ask." Darren raised his weapon. Cross didn't flinch. A gunshot rang out, not from Darren. From behind, he collapsed. Rhea lowered her pistol, jaw tight. "He would have killed you." Cross nodded. "I know." They ran. Chapter 9. Resurrection. The egress tunnel was narrow, low-ceilinged, and pitch dark except for the emergency LEDs wired into the rock. Cross moved first, rifle up, steps silent. Rhea followed, limping, bleeding freely from her leg. They didn't speak. Breathing alone took effort. They reached the outer chamber 5 minutes later. The last door stood ahead, an old pressure seal, half covered in rust, built for flood defense back when the city still cared about rising water. A biometric scanner blinked beside it, long since overridden with hardwire. Cross knelt, popped the casing, and rewired the loop in silence. Rhea slumped against the wall, clutching her leg. "You still believe in this?" she asked. "In what?" "In us. In people. In any of it." Cross didn't look at her. "I believe in pain, and I believe in memory." The panel clicked. The seal began to hiss open. "That's not much," she muttered. "It's enough." They stepped into pale light. The tunnel opened into the underridge, an expanse of broken concrete and rebar that used to be a sewage catchment before the outer wall expansion. Now it was nothing, no drones, no lights, just sky and silence. Cross looked up. The dome of the Capitol loomed behind them like a dying god, red light pulsing from its spires. In front of them, a dozen figures stood waiting. At first, he thought they were enforcers. Then he saw their faces, human, uninfected, wearing masks, but not the state kind. These were old-world breathers, cloth and polyplate, handmade and worn. They removed them slowly, one by one, revealing bare skin. Pale, dark, all tones, all clean. Cross stared. "You're not infected," he said. One of them stepped forward, an older woman with burned scars across her throat and the eyes of someone who'd stopped running a long time ago. "Neither are you," she said. "We've been hiding, waiting, for someone to remind us we're not extinct." Cross looked over his shoulder. Rhea was crying. He hadn't seen her cry before. One of the younger women moved forward and reached toward him. Her hand hovered near his chest, just above the satchel, but the child wasn't there anymore. Cross paused, confused. Then a small voice echoed from behind him. "You smell like Mom did." He turned. The girl stood there, barefoot, wrapped in an old coat, her eyes wide but calm, not afraid. She reached out and touched his hand. Her wrist glowed. The same mark as before, brighter now, like a signal, a beacon. Others stepped forward slowly, removing sleeves, peeling back layers. Marks, dozens, a network. Alive, connected. Chapter 10, Return with Fire. They moved through the ruins like something reborn. Cross led them out of the egress tunnel and down into the dust-swept flats beyond the Capitol walls. The air here smelled different, less filtered, more real. Wind whistled through the broken scaffolding of half-built megastructures. 1,000 plans abandoned mid-dream. He remembered helping pour some of that concrete back when the war had just ended and people still believed in rebuilding. Now it was just bones. The group spread out behind him, a loose formation of the forgotten, uninfected, immune, survivors who'd been written off, pushed underground, left to rot. Some had been hiding for years. Others had defected from state labs, research wards, drone units, people who'd seen too much and lived anyway. The girl walked beside him, barefoot, silent, alert, like she could feel the threads tugging at her from every direction. The mark on her wrist pulsed brighter as they moved farther from the Capitol, like it knew where to go even if she didn't. Rhea limped beside them, favoring her right leg. She hadn't said much since the tunnels, just watched. Occasionally reached out, as if to confirm the girl was still real. "We can't keep moving like this," she said eventually. "Open ground, no cover. If they send drones, we're fried." "They won't," Cross said. "Not yet." "You're sure?" "No," he said, "but I think they're scared." Rhea glanced back at the others. Scared of what? He looked at the girl. Her, United States. The truth. By dusk, they reached the edge of the old sprawl. What had once been suburbs, now long overtaken by earth and time, crooked buildings, half-fallen power lines, abandoned transport sunk into dirt and ivy. It felt like the world exhaled here, not alive, but not dead either. They made camp inside the shell of a collapsed library. The roof was gone, but the walls still held, lined with shelves half rotted and fossilized. Cross sat near the broken circulation desk, watching the girl trace her fingers over the spines of books she couldn't read. Rhea cleaned her wound silently, wincing now and then. "Something's happening," she said. He nodded. "I know. I don't mean just here. I've been getting pings all day, from Earth, from Mars, private networks lighting up like solar flares. The broadcast got out." Cross didn't respond. "They're asking questions," she said. "Some are angry, some are scared. A few are ready." He looked at the fire they'd built in the center of the room. Low, quiet, hidden behind broken stone. "This was never about rebellion," he said. "Not really." "Then what was it?" He met her eyes. "Memory. They wanted to erase it, rewrite us, start over, but you can't overwrite what's already burned in." Outside, the wind picked up. A signal cracked faintly in the girl's wrist, barely audible, just a pulse. And in the distance, from some hidden place beyond the horizon, something answered. Chapter 11. The night we stood still. The signal pulsed every 40 seconds. Low frequency, not vocal, not even language, just rhythm, like a heartbeat being broadcast across dirt and dust and memory. The girl didn't speak while it echoed. She just stood there, tiny hand hovering above the soil like she could feel something moving under it. Cross sat beside the fire, rifle across his knees, eyes scanning the dark. No drones, no patrols, no light from the capital. It was like the city had turned its eyes away for the night, unsure whether it wanted to look or not. The others were awake too. None of them slept. They watched the girl like she was a candle in a room full of gas. Not afraid of her, afraid of what might come looking for her. "She's broadcasting," Rhea whispered beside him. "I know." "She doesn't know how." "She doesn't have to." Rhea rubbed her arms. "I've never seen anything like it. That signal's not artificial. It's biological. Something built into her genes. An old layer of code the Mercy strain never touched." Cross nodded slowly. "Before the edits. Before the war. And now it's awake." The girl turned suddenly, eyes wide, staring into the darkness beyond the ruined walls. Everyone froze, then came the sound. Voices, not amplified, not broadcast. Screams, close. Cross stood instantly, rifle raised. The others scrambled for cover, dragging gear behind broken furniture, readying weapons. The girl didn't move. She just pointed. "They're coming," she said. From the ridge, 6 figures broke the horizon, enforcers. Horned, armed, moving fast, and behind them others, not infected, citizens, chasing. Cross didn't believe it at first. He thought the people running behind the enforcers were drones or taggers. Then he saw their faces, human, clean, and furious. They carried tools, not weapons. Industrial cutters, metal bars, whatever they could hold. A mob the enforcers fired first. One of the humans went down, screaming, but the others didn't stop. They surged forward, overwhelming the lead enforcer, dragging him down, tearing the horn from his skull. The second fell next, then the rest ran. Cross stepped out of cover, stunned. "They're fighting back," Rhea said beside him, breathless. "No," Cross whispered, "they're remembering." The crowd reached the ruins within minutes, panting, bloodied, still wired on adrenaline. Dozens, maybe more, all with marks glowing faintly on their wrists, necks, spines. Fragments of immunity, hidden for years. One man stepped forward, eyes locked on the girl. "We saw the broadcast," he said. "We didn't believe it, not at first. Then people started showing signs, marks they thought were scars, wounds, birth defects, but they matched. And the moment she went active..." He looked down at his hand. It was glowing. So did we. They stood there together for a long time. Nothing moved. No one breathed too loud. The girl walked forward and reached for the man's wrist. Touched the glowing mark. It pulsed once, then dimmed. The signal had connected, and now it was spreading. Chapter 12. Ashes of Mercy. By morning, they had no choice but to move. The network was alive now, fully awake. The signal embedded in the girl's genome had touched others, and those had passed it further, like kindling catching fire. Across the outer sectors, stories spread faster than any drone could chase. People who thought they were alone stepped out of hiding, immune, marked, silent no longer. The resistance wasn't a faction anymore. It was a fact. Cross led the group northeast, toward the far ridges where the broadcast repeaters were still functional. They needed distance, altitude, line of sight. If they could boost the signal again, push it globally, they might do more than wake the hidden. They could turn the tide. Rhea stayed behind with the wounded, coordinating evac routes. She had a sidearm now and a look in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Not hope exactly, purpose. The girl stayed at Cross's side, never more than a few feet away. She still hadn't cried. He wasn't sure if that comforted or scared him more. Sometimes she spoke, but the words felt older than she was, like echoes. As they climbed a broken aqueduct high above the buried suburbs, Cross paused to check their position. The city loomed behind them, far off now. Smaller, less godlike. Then he heard the whine of engines. 3 state gliders, slicing fast through the sky. His rifle came up, but it wouldn't matter. They were too fast, too high. The others ducked, scattered into cover. The girl didn't move. She stood at the edge of the ridge and raised her hand, palm out. A soft light glowed across her skin, and the gliders hesitated. One peeled off, then another. The third slowed, hovered for a moment, then turned. Gone. Cross stared at her. "You did that?" She looked up at him. "I didn't tell them to stop," she said. "I reminded them they could." He had no answer. By nightfall, they reached the repeater. It was barely standing, half rusted, overgrown, but the relay core was intact. Cross rigged the uplink manually, feeding the signal straight from the girl's DNA pulse, not raw footage, not schematics, something deeper. The truth embedded in biology, in memory, in mercy. He activated the channel. For a moment the tower glowed, not bright, not violent, but constant, like a flame that had never quite gone out. Epilogue. They never found Elian Cross again. Some say he died on the ridge that night, holding the transmitter as it overloaded and scorched the sky. Others say he walked into the red-lit horizon with the girl in his arms, still breathing, still quiet, still watching everything. The capital stopped broadcasting for 3 days. When it came back online, the messages had changed. No more declarations, no more slogans, just silence. Then whispers, then cracks in the veneer. In the lower wards, people began removing their masks. They looked each other in the eye again. In the outer zones, small towns that had once vanished into the system lit fires, not in fear, but in signal. A new map took shape, not drawn with borders, but with memory, with truth. They called it the Ember Line. No leaders, no armies, just people who remembered what it meant to say no, what it meant to stand still while the machine tried to grind past you. And somewhere, deep in the buried places between cities and silence, a child grew up unafraid of mirrors. Her skin never turned red, her bones never grew horns. She knew what she was. Proof that the body remembers. That mercy, no matter how long it's buried, always finds a way back.